All right, welcome to the Vibrant Health Show, where I teach you high-level education about women's health topics, but also actionable steps that you can do immediately to start regaining your health and your wellness. So welcome, everybody. Today, we're going to talk about something I hear so often. So tell me in the chat, in the comments, if you have ever experienced this. And if you're watching the replay, go ahead and add comments. We'll come back and answer them. If you are somebody who has a thyroid issue, or you suspect you have a thyroid issue, or specifically if you are on thyroid medication, has this ever happened to you? Let's say you're fatigued, you're gaining weight, you're bloated, you're like, oh yeah, that definitely sounds like my thyroid. You go to the doctor, they run your labs, and they say, yeah, your thyroid's off. Let's put you on thyroid medication. So they put you on the thyroid medication and you're thinking, yes, like this is my answer, right? So I'm going to get on the thyroid medication. The weight's going to fall off. My hair's going to grow back. I'm going to feel amazing. And you're excited to get all of those beautiful changes. So you start the medication. But then it's like 30 days, 60 days, 90 days. You're like, I don't feel a whole lot better. Maybe it's not working, right? Maybe I'm not doing it right, or maybe I need to change the dose or something, right? So you go back and they run your follow-up labs and they say, no, like your TSH looks great, your thyroid's working perfect. It's not your thyroid. Maybe you're stressed, right? Maybe you're tired. Maybe you just need to lose some weight, right? All the things we typically hear when this type of stuff is going on. And you're thinking, wait a minute, like I still feel the exact same as I did before I started the medications. Can't be working. Has that ever happened to you? Hello, everybody jumping on. Welcome, welcome. So tell me, has that ever happened to you? Have you started the medication, tried the medication, and felt like that really wasn't working for me? I'm going to explain to you today why that is. So if that is your case, if you've been on thyroid medication in the past, if you are currently on medication and you're still feeling like, I just don't feel great, this is exactly the reasons why. We're going to go through 3 of the main ones right now and tell me as we go if that sounds familiar, if that is you, if this has happened to you before. I love to know that I'm talking to the right room of people. Hello, hello. Thank you for all the sweet comments, people. Thank you. Okay, so number 1, and I'm going to go in order of what I see happen the most often, right? There's things that happen more often than others. So the very first reason why most people don't feel better on a thyroid medication is because you're missing the number 1 contraindication. Now, if you don't know what contraindication means, it means a reason why you probably shouldn't be on a medication. Unmuted here. Sorry, guys. All right. So do you guys know what the number 1 contraindication is for being on a thyroid medication? The number 1 reason why you shouldn't start one, or you should actually have to support it at the same time. If you know the answer to that, tell me in the comments. Do you know what the answer is? It is called adrenal insufficiency, which means if your adrenal glands are not working properly, that is the number 1 reason why people shouldn't be on a thyroid medication. But my question to you is, if you are on a thyroid medication or have ever been on a thyroid medication, did they check your adrenal function first? Did they? Because most of the time the answer is no. You're put on these medications. And listen, this is not a conversation about whether you should or shouldn't be on medication. I very much believe there is a blend of all things. Healthcare is integrative. That's the point. But the point is, for you to get maximum results from anything you're doing, you need to have all the facts. And when it comes to your thyroid function, the most important thing you need to know is how well your adrenals are working, because they talk back and forth, right? They literally communicate together to give you the best chance of feeling amazing and getting your health back. So if you're only really fixing one of those pieces, no wonder you don't feel any better. So piece number 1, if you were on a thyroid medication, or you feel like you have a thyroid issue, or your thyroid labs are off, and you haven't checked your adrenal glands yet, that's it. That's your next step, right? Actionable item number 1 is figure out what's going on with your adrenals so you can properly support that. And now here's the crazy thing, is this is not just like a holistic opinion. If you go to the Synthroid, the levothyroxine website, any thyroid medication website, under contraindications, it will be listed that adrenal insufficiency is one of the reasons not to start, or at least to investigate first before starting a thyroid medication. That's on their website, yet thousands upon thousands of women are being put on medications every week without testing their adrenal glands. That to me is a big no-no. So if nothing else, you start there. Now let's talk about some actionable things you can do immediately for your adrenal function. So tell me in the comments if you know, what is the primary thing your adrenals do for you? It helps you regulate what? Your stress response, right? So ladies in particular, men too, but mostly ladies, are you stressed? Do you have a little bit of stress in your life? It's coming, busy seasons, all the things. If you're a parent, especially if you work, if you have lots of tasks and jobs you do around the house, all of that busyness, that's stress, right? Even if it's a good stress, it's still a stress. So in addition to making sure you're checking your adrenal function, things I want you to start prioritizing is your ability to manage your stress. Because if we can take away physical and emotional stress from our body, we will ultimately have better adrenal function, right? It is what your adrenals are so insufficient because you're so stressed, right? And I say this coming from a person who had to learn the hard way multiple times to manage my stress, because my stress would consistently put me back into flares of thyroid issues and immune system issues and things that we'll talk about today. So I want to share with you some of the things I personally do truly to this day that I still do to manage my stress so that I do not compromise my thyroid, my adrenals, my immune system. So in addition to getting your adrenals tested, and there's links, and I'll drop links in the comment section as well to places you can get the tests I recommend to test your adrenal function. But in addition to that, number one, and this is simple, I want you to add 10 minutes. I'm not even asking you for an hour. I want you to add 10 minutes of concerted stress management time every single day. That means it is a time that you are by yourself in silence, especially women out there. How often are you just in quiet, that nobody or nothing needs you? There's nothing that needs you to be doing in like that exact moment. I need you to give me 10 minutes a day. You probably need more, but if you can at least give yourself 10 minutes, we're going to start regulating our nervous system more consistently, and it's going to help with stress. So things you can do in that 10 minutes, my favorite things that are quick, but give you the most bang for your buck as far as stress management. I love breath work. There are so many great resources. Just search on any search engine for 10-minute breath work, and you're going to find wonderful things. Sit for 10 minutes and breathe, right? Consciously breathe, get oxygen into your body. That's going to help manage your stress response. That's such an easy one for anyone to implement. Number two is called EFT tapping. If you are in my thyroid and hormone group on Facebook, if you search stress management, you will see I have tapping videos in there. I have breathwork videos in there. I have all the resources you need to use. I even have a full 5-day stress management challenge that you can take yourself back through. So those resources are there. Use them. If you're not in that group yet, make sure that you join so you can get all those resources. But tapping, if you have never heard of EFT tapping, it is my favorite because it gives you not only the calming of your brain, but also the calming of your body. So if you're someone who has like migraine headaches or physical pain, or stress gives you, tension in your shoulders or those types of things, tapping allows your body to release that at the same time as calming your mental stress. So that one is so good. And then the third one, just sit in silence, right? Like how often do you just sit in quiet? You can call it meditation if you want, or you can call it giving your brain a rest for a minute, if that helps you kind of conceptualize it better, but just sitting quietly. And that doesn't mean your brain's not going places, you're not thinking of things, but you're just bringing it back. You're allowing it moments of quiet, because so often in our day, there are no moments of quiet. I can't tell you how many times I get to the end of the day, I'm like, holy crap, like I didn't slow down or stop long enough to breathe, half the time to pee, right? Like how many of you have to hold your pee in because you have so many things to do during the day? That, my friends, is why your adrenals are insufficient and a big reason why your thyroid's not working properly. I mean, at the absolute root of most thyroid and adrenal problems is stress and busyness. So if nothing else, 10 minutes a day, try one of those 3 tips: breath work, EFT tapping, just sitting in quiet, doing some very gentle meditation. Start with 10 minutes, and that alone, you're going to feel tremendous benefit, I promise. And then in my thyroid and hormone group, if you search in the search tab, stress management, I have tons of resources in there for you to try. So try some different ones and see how you like them. In addition to that, things that I do ongoing, so I'll do my daily stress management always, that's a non-negotiable for me. And then you can add some really great adaptogenic herbs to help you calm your stress response. I'll put links for all of these. I'll make sure you have resources to find all of these. I'll put them in the comment section as well. But getting some good herbs to help support. Now, when it comes to adrenal glands, I am incredibly picky about what you take to support your adrenal function, especially if you don't have testing, right? So if you've never tested your adrenal glands, please be very careful. I would not suggest you start like an adrenal complex. I wouldn't suggest you start an adrenal cortex. I wouldn't suggest that you start a blend of things for your adrenal glands, because a lot of those are designed to stimulate adrenal function. And most of you, that's not what you need. So really the things that I consider safe and usable for everybody, my favorite one is ashwagandha, right? I talk about that all the time. It's easy, it's safe, most people tolerate it very well, and it doesn't matter what your adrenal pattern looks like, it's going to be beneficial because it's an adaptogen. So I would definitely recommend starting with an ashwagandha supplement. I have a wonderful one because I talk about it so much, and you always want good sourcing and you always want good quality. I've actually created it as part of my women's line. So my ashwagandha supplement is called Powerful. So it gives you, I love the name of that, right? It's like those adaptogenic herbs. When you support your stress response, when you support your adrenal glands, it makes you feel powerful. It makes you feel like you can get through your day, right? You can conquer all the things that are going on, and it gives you back that power to be able to do that without tanking your adrenal gland. So that's one of my favorite ones. And then the second thing is adding things to support the actual stress in your nervous system. So here's what I feel like a lot of people miss when they're talking about stress management, is we get our stress response from two major places. One is our adrenal function, definitely. So we want to use ashwagandha or adaptogens to help support that. But number two is the physical stress in your nervous system, right? Brain racing, creating those stories in your mind, replaying things in your head all the time, getting that anxious thought process. Like a lot of times that goes hand in hand with our busyness. And ashwagandha is great, but I don't feel like it really supports that piece of my stress puzzle. So I always like to layer some mood and some neurotransmitter support at the same time. That way I'm supporting brain function, I'm supporting memory, I'm reducing inflammation in my brain, right? Which can be helpful long-term to avoid dementia, Alzheimer's, and all those things. And I get a much more significant reduction in my stress symptoms when I do both adrenal support and my neurotransmitter support, my mood and brain support. So I've created, it's called my stress management bundle, right? That's exactly what it does. And it has both. It has your adaptogenic adrenal support, which is powerful. And then it has your mood and brain support, which is called joyful, right? Because what woman doesn't want to be more joyful? The two of those together for me, absolute best combination. And I truly take them daily. I mean, they're literally sitting beside my desk. I take them every single day. And I would say I'm a much nicer and happier and more productive person when I do that ongoing. Not to mention, if I stay on top of that, my thyroid numbers stay much, much more in control, because I know for me, like so many women, stress is the number one thing that throws my thyroid off. It just is. And for most of you, it's probably the exact same situation. So if you know that you're a busy person, if you know that you're a stressed person, I highly, highly recommend that the first thing that you start doing is really manage that stress response. Add your 10 minutes, use the 3 tips I just gave you, and girl, get a stress management bundle. I mean, that is the best thing you could probably do for yourself right now to calm that stress response and create more joy in your life. And I know for me, that makes such a big difference. So for most of you, that's actionable step number 1. Stress is probably the primary reason you don't feel better, even if you're already on a thyroid medication, even if the medication has your thyroid numbers back to normal, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. Even though your levels look normal, you still don't feel better. Stress and adrenals, for most of you, is the number 1 reason. Now, if that's not you, and I so rarely hear that, like, no, I'm not stressed at all. Like, I don't have any stress in my life. Great, okay, then you might be number 2 or 3, or likely it's a combination of all of them, right? I know for me, that was it. I had all 3 things I'm about to talk to you guys about. I had all 3 of them, right? That's just usually the way it goes. So stress being number 1, the most common. Number 2, if you don't know this about your thyroid medication, let me give you a little bit of just kind of science to this. Most thyroid medications are just a T4 thyroid hormone. So your thyroid makes primarily T4 thyroid hormone. But then it gets shipped out to different areas of the body on protein carriers where it needs to be converted to a T3 hormone, which is your active hormone that gives you the energy, helps you lose weight, makes your hair grow back. T3 is really the hormone that does majority of that function. Yet most of the medications you're on, Synthroid, levothyroxine, a generic, they are only T4 thyroid hormone. So if you have inflammation in your body, if you have gut issues, if there's things going on with your liver, you might not be able to properly convert your T4 medication to the T3 hormone that you need to feel better. So even though your TSH can look better, even though your T4 levels, which is normally all they check on your thyroid labs when you go to your general doctor, those two things can look great and you still feel crappy because it's not converting to T3. So actionable step number one, if you have thyroid hormone labs, I want you to pull them out and I want you to check. Did they check your TSH, your T4, and your T3? If you have not had your T3 hormone checked yet, I would call today and ask for it, right? Say, I want to see what this looks like. I still don't feel much better. I want to make sure that I'm converting it to my T3 hormone. That's step number one, because you have to know if that's happening. This was my exact thyroid panel. I had normal TSH, perfect. Actually, my TSH has always been about a 1, which is ideal. My T4 was always good. So every time I would go for general thyroid labs, I would be told my labs look normal, everything is great, nothing's wrong, until I pulled my own labs for the very first time and found out that I had very low T3, which was why I felt terrible, even though my TSH and my T4 were normal. So I have been there, and you really want, and definitely reverse T3. I'm going to talk more about what goes into a full thyroid panel in just a second, but you at bare minimums, TSH, T4, T3 to make sure you're converting it properly. If that is your problem, if you're not converting it properly, it's because there is a blockage or an issue in the areas your body converts that hormone. Most likely, there's something going on with your gut, there's something going on with your liver, or potentially also your adrenal glands help convert that. So if you have a conversion issue, that's where we're going to have to rely more heavily on testing to figure out what's blocking your body's ability. That one's not as simple as, oh, you don't convert well, here's a great supplement that helps you do that. T3 or free T3. I'm a big fan of testing both total and free. They give you different information. So the more values you can get, the better you're going to be able to make decisions for all of that. Great question. But the one that typically has the more weight is going to be your free T3. But ideally, we test both. So that one's going to require a little bit more testing, right? Unfortunately, there's not a one-size-fits-all answer for that. We need to start doing a deeper dive into why can't your body convert that hormone? There's something going on that's blocking that. Again, typically looking at a stool sample, do you have overgrowth or infections in the gut? Is your microbiome imbalanced? Do we have sluggish liver? Things like insulin resistance, infections will do that as well. We'll talk a little bit more about Epstein-Barr virus. Those are all things that are known to slow or inhibit the conversion. And then shocker, so is stress, right? Cortisol, stress hormone, adrenal issues are also one of the things that will block your T4 from converting to T3, which is why I talk so much about stress and stress response, because it affects so many things in your body. And it's such a beautiful thing that you can start supporting right away. But yes, check your labs. Number one, if you haven't had at least your T3 checked, that's next step. But most people need to go a layer deeper than that. So conversion is common. I see that as an issue, and then finding out why. If you know, so let's say you look at your labs and that is a problem, your T3 tends low and you want help investigating that, the best place to start is my team offers free intro calls. We have links to that. I'll make sure they get dropped. They will help you navigate and figure out what's the best test for you based on your symptoms, based on your health history. What are the most likely things we need to check and test to figure out why you're not converting that thyroid hormone? So if you think that's your problem and you've had kind of weird labs and they're not regulating properly, getting on a call, getting individualized recommendations is going to be your best bet. Definitely. And that happens a lot. Again, that was a huge piece of my issue. My body just couldn't convert my hormone. It was making enough. It just couldn't convert it because I had so much inflammation, I had infections, I had food allergies, I had all these things that were blocking my body from being able to convert to that. So checking that is really, really beneficial. So we've talked about the top 2 things already that could be the reason why you're on thyroid medication, but you still don't feel better, right? They say my labs are normal, they say my TSH is good, but I don't feel better. What's going on? The number 1 reason we already covered is stress and what's called adrenal insufficiency. If your adrenal glands are not working properly, your thyroid is not going to be able to regulate to its optimal level. And even if your thyroid hormone looks good, your symptoms, right? Your weight, your hair, your skin, your energy, all the things that you're looking to improve might not get better because they're more of an adrenal symptom than they even are a thyroid symptom. So if you're on thyroid medication and don't feel better, make sure that if you have traditional hypothyroid, right, you just do not make enough thyroid hormone and they give you more thyroid hormone, that should take care of the problem, right? You should feel better. Things should get better. That should be your answer. But if you don't just have typical hypothyroid, right? What if you have Hashimoto's? What if you have an autoimmune issue? Just taking a thyroid medication is not going to make you feel much better because your problem is not primarily your thyroid. Your problem is primarily your immune system, right? So if you have never, and I talk about this so often, I hope everybody is getting their thyroid antibodies tested. If you've never tested your thyroid antibodies to see if you have Hashimoto's, that is imperative. That's another line. Get off this video today and go call your doctor and ask them to check your thyroid antibodies because it makes a huge difference in how you're going to want to manage what's going on. Now, let me explain that a little bit further. Your thyroid antibodies are elevated if you're having an immune response, if your body is having an autoimmune reaction. And the most common reason people have autoimmune reactions is because there is an immune system trigger that's creating that to happen. So if you, for example, have your thyroid peroxidase antibody elevated, right? That's one of the most common ones that will help your practitioner diagnose you with Hashimoto's. If that's you and you have your antibodies elevated, what's been happening a lot recently is your doctor will say, oh, well, you do have Hashimoto's, but we treat it the same way. We actually still just give you the thyroid medication. We're protecting the thyroid from being further damaged. We don't really do anything different. We treat it the same way as hypothyroid. So here's your medication. We'll keep checking your levels. We'll do this every year and until it gets worse. And then maybe we'll have to do some type of surgery. That is what drives me crazy because that is not the truth. You need to be managing this differently. If you have Hashimoto's, if your antibodies are elevated and the only intervention you have is medication, you are missing so much of your answer. In order to really get to the root cause of what's going on with your immune system, you have to find what's triggering that response. Here is something, if you learn nothing else from today, I want you to remember this. We have been taught, including in school, they taught us an autoimmune condition is your body attacking, fill in the blank, what do they say? Your body attacking itself. Right? That's what we've been taught. Even as healthcare professionals, we were taught an autoimmune disease is your body attacking its own tissue. And you know what? That's not right. That's not right. Your body never just attacks itself for no reason, right? Your body doesn't just wake up one day and say, I think I'm going to wage a war on your thyroid. That sounds like fun. That's not how this works. If you have elevated antibodies, if you have an autoimmune condition, your body is attacking something. This is your answer. This is your golden goose. This is the thing you've been missing. Your body's attacking something. And if you find that something, that's how you truly start to heal and get better. Now, for most people, the number one cause of Hashimoto's, the number one cause of having elevated antibodies to your thyroid is a chronic Epstein-Barr infection. It is the number one cause. Because wouldn't this make more sense? Instead of your body just waking up and attacking itself, your body says, oh my gosh, we have all this virus, right? We have this Epstein-Barr virus and it's inside the thyroid. I don't want it there. It's impacting function. It's creating inflammation. Let's wage a war on the Epstein-Barr virus and try and kill it off instead and get rid of it, right? That's the smart thing to do. So it elevates the antibodies, it goes to war in the thyroid, but primarily to fight off the Epstein-Barr. It's not fighting itself. Now, unfortunately, there is definitely some like friendly fire, right? We're getting inflammation and damage in the thyroid when the antibodies are elevated. That's true. But it's because it's fighting the Epstein-Barr virus. So if we would just deal with the virus instead of just, taking medication and making sure our thyroid levels were normal, not only will that preserve your thyroid better long term, you're finally going to feel better, right? Because you're actually dealing with the cause. Now, most people, the cause is Epstein-Barr. Truly, it's about 80% of Hashimoto's cases have chronic Epstein-Barr virus. So if you've never been checked for that, absolutely. I also have an amazing, completely free masterclass that I go deep on Epstein-Barr, what causes it, how do you know if you have it, what you can do for it. I teach you the protocols that I use for it. So I have a link to my Epstein-Barr masterclass. I'll drop it in the comments. It's also in the link in all of my bios. If you have Hashimoto's and you've never watched that masterclass, that is, again, your actionable item on your list today. Go watch the Epstein-Barr masterclass because it's chock full of things you absolutely have to know, because Epstein-Barr is a huge player in chronic illness in multiple autoimmune conditions, not just Hashimoto's. It has been linked highly to MS, to rheumatoid arthritis, to fibromyalgia, to migraine headaches. So if you suffer from those things, absolutely. Can chronic EBV cause hair loss? Hugely, because EBV eats up your ferritin. There's different, like magnesium tends to drop. So we lose those minerals and those nutrients, and it can absolutely be a big cause of hair loss. So yes, please watch the Epstein-Barr masterclass. There's so much information in there, and also actionable items you can do to start getting yourself back on track with a chronic virus. Now, some people, maybe it's not Epstein-Barr, right? Other potential immune system triggers that could create an autoimmune response, including Hashimoto's, could be things like a bacterial infection in the gut. It could be a parasite. It could be mold toxicity. That's another thing we work with so often. If you've been exposed to toxic mold, if you live in damp climates, if you live in places where there's deep winters, you've probably been exposed to mold. If that gets stuck in your thyroid, which it does, don't you think it makes more sense that your thyroid is fighting off mold spores inside the thyroid instead of just attacking itself for no reason? Looking for that cause is so hugely important. Sometimes it's heavy metal with amalgam fillings in the mouth have been linked highly, right? If you have all this metal and toxic stuff in your mouth, your thyroid sits right here. It's going to get down there, right? That's one of the things. Root canal, infections in the oral cavity, all of those have been known causes of Hashimoto's and other immune issues. So if nothing else, you're going to remember an autoimmune issue is not your body attacking itself for no reason. Is your body attacking something for a very good reason? And your next job is to find out what it's attacking, right? Start with the most common ones, Epstein-Barr being the most common, infections in the gut, and then potential mold and heavy metals. Those are the most common triggers. I would also put Lyme in there, but depending on where you live in the country, that's not as prevalent. But those are the number one causes of any autoimmune response. So if you have an autoimmune issue or autoimmune history in your family, these are things you need to investigate immediately so you can best support your body to not get long-term issues from that. So very important. So let's recap again. I have lots of new people jumping on. So we have been talking about the reasons why you might be on a thyroid medication or your thyroid levels are normal, but you still don't feel good. There are 3 huge things that can contribute to that. Number 1, and probably the most common, is stress, not being able to manage your stress response properly. I've given tips about 3 of my favorite stress management techniques and challenged everyone to spend 10 minutes a day calming their stress response. Adding beautiful adaptogenic and supportive herbs like ashwagandha, like my brain and mood support called Joyful, things that are just going to help maintain a healthy stress response are imperative if you are a busy or stressed out person. We also talked about testing, making sure you're testing your adrenal function, because having adrenal issues is one of the main reasons thyroid medications are not beneficial for you. Number 2, we talked about being able to convert your medication. If you are on a T4 medication like levothyroxine, Synthroid, or a generic version of that, but you can't utilize your medication properly, you can be on as much medication as you want. You're not going to feel better. So we have to make sure your body's actually using that. And by getting a good full picture of what's going on with your thyroid, testing TSH, T4, T3, and then we also talked about testing your thyroid antibodies to make sure it's not an autoimmune issue. That's the way you can get a deeper dive into what's going on. And if you do have hypothyroid, being certain you've had your antibodies checked to see if it's Hashimoto's. And if you know you have Hashimoto's, making sure you are now taking the next step to figure out what is your body fighting? Why are your antibodies elevated? What is the immune trigger that you personally have that's causing these issues? That will absolutely be the next step, with Epstein-Barr virus being one of the more common things. And then I talked about this last week in detail. So if you missed last week's show, I went over what a full thyroid panel should look like, what each of those values mean. But someone did ask a quick question about reverse T3, so I wanted to touch on that. Reverse T3 is another indicator. If your reverse T3 is elevated, that there is stress or infection in the body. It's a protective mechanism. That's what I teach, is if your reverse T3 is elevated, the first thing you think is, what's my body trying to protect me from, right? Is there something that it doesn't want to feed energy to? Because T3 is our energy hormone. So if your body says, oh, she has a bunch of inflammation, this is not good. We do not want to feel that fire. Let's rein in her energy. Let's make her really tired. Let's make her sleep a lot. Let's not give her, the metabolism and the energy she needs so she'll rest so we don't spread that fire. That's what reverse T3 is telling you. So it's another warning sign that there's a potential infection, inflammation, something is triggering an abnormal response in the body, and you would want to test further to make sure you know what that is. That's so important to know what it is that's triggering your body. And that's where really good testing comes into play, right? Like getting proper testing is the piece of the puzzle most of you are missing, right? I'm certain you've tried the nutrition stuff. Most of you have tried all the supplements. Most of you have done all the things. And if you're still not feeling better, it's because you're missing your root cause answers. And doing functional testing like a comprehensive stool sample, a detailed hormone and adrenal mapping, looking if you have Epstein-Barr virus, looking at a full thyroid panel, those are all things that are going to give you much more detailed information so that you can make the best choices for your health. When you individualize your plan based on what your body needs, that's when cool stuff happens. That's when your body starts to really balance back out. And that's when you will finally start feeling better, even though you've been on the thyroid medication and your thyroid hormones look normal and you still feel like crap. It's because you're missing one or all of the things that we discussed today. So I highly encourage you to go back and start looking at them one by one. Start with stress. Review your old thyroid labs and see if you've been tested for T3, see if they've tested your antibodies. And if you've had those things done and you're still not feeling better, it's time to really deep dive into some testing and figure out what's your body reacting to, right? What is the thing that's keeping you from not feeling better? Because I promise you this, there is always an answer, right? I don't know what it is yet. That's why we have to test. But if you don't feel well, if you have health symptoms, if you have trouble, if you have problems, your body is not doing this for no reason. You're not crazy. It's not all in your head. There is a root cause. There's always an answer. And it's just up to you now to find the people that will help you figure out your root cause so you can get your health back, right? So it's never for nothing. There's always a reason. Find the reason, and that's where you really regain your vibrant health and live the life that you want to. So I hope that was helpful. If you haven't watched the Epstein-Barr Masterclass, it's free. The link to my bio, we dropped the link right here in the comments as well. Please go watch it. Super informative and one of probably the most missed pieces in chronic health and autoimmune issues. So if you haven't investigated that as part of your root cause, that is a big deal for a lot of people. So thank you guys so much for joining me today. I do the Vibrant Health Show live every Thursday at noon Eastern Time, 9 Pacific Time with different topics. We're going to dive deep into more health topics for women. We'll talk about Epstein-Barr. We'll talk about menopause. We'll talk about PMS. We'll talk about all the things that every woman deserves to know about. Each episode will have brand new content. So join me every Thursday live, and then we'll have the replay link available in the next couple of days. So if you jumped on late or you want the replay, just keep an eye out for that, and we'll have that out here in the next few days. So have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you next time.